Tales of the Strange and Exotic Random Book Review. Now, this made it into a haul for me not too long ago, and I'm halfway through, but this has been so freaking awesome. I have to review it right now because it's kind of more of the same, but this I got at Savers for like $2, and I picked it up just because I recognized Brian Froud, and he did the artwork for Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, I think. Labyrinth definitely, maybe not Dark Crystal. So I'm like, oh cool, you know. And it goes The Runes of Elfland, written by Ari Burke. And I didn't even bother to read the back. So I'm like, okay, Brian Froud, picture book. I just kind of flipped through and I liked the photographs. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. Pretty cool things. And the back just doesn't really specify much of anything. A place may provide a door to Elfland. Any place may provide a door to Elfland if the right runes are known, if the right stories are spoken. A rune, a shard, an image, a sound, a memory. All these will help you enter the land of the telling. Cast about your mind for clues. You may have encountered one of these landscapes before in a dream. A single word can be a world, and every letter a land. It's really hard when everything's in caps. So, it's like, okay, whatever. Well, if you are studying actual runes, or, want to get into runes, this is a flipping awesome place to start. But if you definitely are into runes, you must pick this up. And this actually, I would suggest having a basic knowledge of the Futark, I think it is the type of rune if you see a rune, that's usually the ones that they most often use. So I would suggest having a basic knowledge of those runes to kind of appreciate more of this book. But it's still a really neat way of describing runes. Now, this is basically what each rune is displayed as. So you've got the rune of beginnings, and he starts off with like a little charm / spell type thing, and it shows you the actual rune, which I don't know if you can see with the lighting here. And it goes into like a story, and kind of based on the rune. And there's one about the sun, or the Sun King, Sun Prince, that I have heard before, I think, dabbling into runes. So I think there is some actual factual knowledge this is based on. I think if you have more of a solid background in rune reading, you might pick up more on it than I would. And then you have like these really cool pictures like this dude here. But I love the fact, he's a little more obvious in his pose. He's making the rune. But in the next page, it'll go into the story, and then it kind of describes what the rune actually means, but it doesn't spell it out for you. It's a lot more cryptic. But again, if you have an actual knowledge of runes, I think you'd probably be like, well, duh. So, but you get a picture of a fairy, an elf, a being of a being of non-sexness, posing in the rune shape, which I think, some of them you wouldn't physically think, that you can do. And up top here you can see the entire alphabet of these particular runes. But at least in the main picture, you can kind of get a representation of the rune too. This one is the Rune of Skill, which is basically like merge an S in a lightning bolt. And of course, it's the picture of the guy in the back here, where you kind of got the S going here, and then you get the rune on the bottom. It'd be nice if they kind of told you what the actual name of the rune was. Rune of protection. I mean, it tells you what it does, but it doesn't... You know, like this one is R, which is the rune of journeys, which is basically the letter R. And he's just standing there with his leg up, but he's making the rune. So I just a really wild way of doing a book like that. It's just... But okay, he did. Going back to the artist here, Brian Froud is an award-winning illustrator, author, and fairy authority. Okay. His books include international bestsellers such as Fairies with Alan Lee, Lady Cottonton's pressed fairy book, which I have come across and I would love to get my hands on, with Monty Python's Cherry Jones. Well, now that makes sense. Lady Cottonton's fairy album, which I think might be the one where they're kind of like squished and the fairies are like in the pages. I find that amusing. And the Fairy's Oracle. He also served as the conceptual designer on Jim Henson's films The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. So he did do Dark Crystal because the Gelflings look very Froud. He lives in Devon, England with his wife and son. And then the author, a dude named Ari Burke, is an artist, poet, teacher of mythology, folklore, American Indian studies, and medieval literature. He has published works on rune lore, fairy stories, The Wild Hunt, and every time I hear that I think of, The Witcher, landscape and myth, and many other topics. Dr. Burke is a professor of literature at Central Michigan University. Okay. So at least, they know what they're talking about as far as, they're just not making it up off the cuff. There is some actual knowledge in here, but it's done in such a way where, if you're hesitant about runes or anything like that, you shouldn't get your panties in a bunch. Just look at it as a fairy book. But if you are, and this supposedly was in the occult section of whatever bookstore this was gloriously hidden in, a good book on runes to at least learn the stories, and I've been loving it. And it's funny that, studying these type of things, these are just sort of like, here. If I had looked for something like this, I wouldn't have found it. And I'm like, oh, Brian Froud. And I'm like, this is a book of runes, this is cool. I don't pretend to know much about them, but I have made some runes, and I just eventually... see, I'm sort of the jack of all trades, master of none. I'll have like a vague knowledge of most stuff, but it's like I never stop quite studying them, but it just doesn't quite stick. But then I'm a Gemini, I bore easily. But I've been loving this book, and the artwork is just really cool, and it's done really well. I'm very impressed. I mean, this was quite the catch, and I don't know what this was originally. Originally published at US for $25. So this can't be too old a book. I'm sure you can find this easily on Amazon. I think it's only a couple of years old. Copyright 2003, so about 10 years old. So yeah, you should be able to easily find this on Amazon. Definitely a book that you want to have in your library if you're interested in, paganism, fairies, anything fantasy. A must-have. So even if you're just a fan of like Brian Froud and his artwork, I mean, you don't even have to read the letters. Neat book to have. I shall stop rambling and probably continue reading. So, thank you for watching. Do remember to comment, rate, share, and subscribe. There's always room for one more at the Strange and Exotic. Happy reading. Bye.